Darling, I just spent a small fortune from our joint account, she purred, her voice dripping with a satisfaction he hadn't heard in years. And I have to say, it felt absolutely wonderful. That was the moment Dr. Evelyn Hayes stopped being a victim. Just hours after discovering her husband's affair, not through whispers but cold, hard credit card receipts for another woman's diamonds, she didn't shatter. She got even. After a $200,000 shopping spree, laden with designer bags, she stumbled upon her husband and his mistress at their secret cafe. But instead of tears, she gave them a smile as sharp as a scalpel and a casual mention of the new Porsche she was test driving. This isn't just a story about infidelity. It's about a brilliant surgeon who sacrificed her career for family, only to be tossed aside. And it's about what happens when she decides to take back everything she's owed and more. The choice he made that day would cost him more than just his money. It would cost him his entire world. If you're tuning in, I'd love to know where and when you're listening from. Drop a comment below and don't forget to share this with someone who needs a reminder that a woman's silence is not weakness. Trust me, you'll want to hear how this ends. Evelyn Hayes sliced strawberries with surgical precision, the knife gliding through the fruit in clean, even cuts. Her hands, once steady in the operating room, now orchestrated breakfast in a kitchen too pristine to feel like home. Ava's giggles drifted from the living room, where she and Leo stacked blocks into wobbly towers. Evie's lips curved, but her eyes lingered on the framed medical degree above the counter, its gold lettering dulled by dust. She paused, the knife hovering, her chest tightening as if the air had thinned. The front door clicked open. Marcus's footsteps echoed, deliberate and heavy, like a metronome marking time she couldn't reclaim. Evie wiped her hands on a dish towel, smoothing her expression into the practiced calm of a wife. He entered, his tailored suit crisp, his dark hair flecked with early gray. "Morning," he said, his voice smooth but distant, like a radio tuned to a far-off station. He didn't look at her, his eyes already on his phone. "Rough night at the hospital?" Evie asked, sliding a plate of toast toward him. Her tone was light, but her fingers gripped the counter's edge, betraying the question she wouldn't voice. "Why don't you see me anymore?" "Long surgery," Marcus muttered, scrolling. "Complicated case." He took a bite of toast, crumbs dusting his tie, and turned away. Evie's gaze followed him, searching for the man who'd once held her hand through sleepless nights in med school. That man was gone, replaced by this stranger who left her questions hanging in the air like smoke. She busied herself with Ava's lunchbox, tucking in a star-shaped sandwich for her 7-year-old, a small act of love to anchor her morning. As she sealed the container, her eyes caught on a folded paper on Marcus's desk in the corner. A credit card statement left carelessly open. Curiosity tugged at her, sharp and unbidden. She glanced at Marcus, still absorbed in his phone, and unfolded the paper. Her breath caught. A charge from Tiffany & Co. is for $25,000. A diamond necklace. Her fingers traced the line, searching for a memory of a gift she'd never received. Her heart thudded, a warning pulse. She set the statement down, her hands steady as if preparing for a scalpel, and moved to the laptop on the counter. Marcus's email was still logged in, his password unchanged since their dating days. A few clicks revealed a confirmation, a weekend at a Napa Valley resort, booked for 2. Last weekend, he'd claimed a medical conference. Evie's pulse roared in her ears. She opened Instagram, typing Isabella Vance into the search bar. Dr. Izzy Vance, Marcus's colleague, smiled from the screen, her dark curls framing a face too familiar. In a recent post, she stood against a vineyard's golden haze, a diamond necklace glinting at her throat. The caption read, "Thank you to someone special for this unforgettable trip." Evie's stomach twisted, the knife of betrayal slicing deeper than she'd expected. She closed the laptop, her movements deliberate, clinical. The kitchen felt smaller, the walls pressing in like a patient's collapsing lung. She could cry, scream, shatter the plates. But that wasn't her. Not Dr. Evelyn Hayes, who'd once stitched a man's artery under pressure without flinching. She inhaled, slow and deep, her mind shifting to the familiar rhythm of diagnosis. Problem, infidelity. Evidence, undeniable. Plan, unknown, but I'll find one. Ava's voice broke through. "Mommy, Leo knocked over my tower." Evie turned, forcing a smile as she knelt beside her children. Ava's brown eyes, so like Marcus's, sparkled with indignation, while Leo, 4 and fearless, grinned with a block in each hand. "Let's build a bigger one," Evie said, her voice steady despite the storm inside. She stacked blocks with them, each one a brick in the wall she was building around her heart. Marcus stood, grabbing his briefcase. "I'm late," he said, not meeting her eyes. "Conference call tonight. Might be home after dinner." Evie nodded, her smile a mask. As the door closed behind him, she rose, her gaze landing on the wedding photo above the fireplace. She and Marcus, younger, laughing, her white dress glowing under the sunlight. Her fingers tightened, nails biting into her palms. She crossed to the photo, lifting it from its hook. The glass was cold under her touch, the image a lie she'd believed too long. Her reflection stared back, a woman with tired eyes and a jaw set like steel. "You picked the wrong opponent, Marcus," she whispered, her voice low, a scalpel's edge. She set the frame face down on the shelf, the act as final as a suture. Evie returned to the kitchen, her movements mechanical as she cleared the breakfast dishes. The credit card statement lay where she'd left it, a silent accusation. She folded it carefully, tucking it into her pocket. Her mind raced, piecing together a strategy as she would a patience chart. Gather more evidence, assess the damage, plan the incision. She didn't know what came next, but she knew one thing: she wouldn't break. As Ava and Leo's laughter filled the room, Evie's resolve hardened. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about them, her anchors, her reason. She'd protect them, no matter the cost. The gilded cage of her life had cracked, and through that fracture, she glimpsed something fierce and unbroken: herself. Evelyn Hayes stared into the bathroom mirror, her reflection a stranger in a faded t-shirt, hair knotted in a careless bun. The woman gazing back wasn't the surgeon who'd once commanded an operating room, her hands steady as steel. She traced the lines under her eyes, etched by years of sacrifice. For Marcus, for Ava, for Leo. Her fingers curled into fists. "No more," she whispered, the words a vow to the ghost of who she'd been. She pulled on a silk blouse, the fabric cool against her skin, and let her hair fall loose, waves catching the morning light. The credit card statement burned in her pocket. Marcus's betrayal a weight she carried as she dialed Eleanor, her mother-in-law, whose warm voice had once been her refuge. The phone rang twice before Eleanor answered, her tone bright but brittle. "Evie, dear, how are the children?" Evie's grip tightened on the phone. "They're fine. Marcus, though, he was in Napa last weekend. A conference, he said. Know anything about that?" Silence stretched, heavy as a held breath. Eleanor's hesitation was a blade, slicing through Evie's trust. "He's been under stress, dear," Eleanor finally said, her voice thin. "You know how demanding his work is." Evie's jaw clenched. She saw it now. Eleanor's loyalty wasn't to her, but to Marcus, her golden son. "So you knew," Evie said, her voice low, surgical. "And you chose to say nothing." Eleanor stammered, but Evie cut her off. "I'm done relying on you. I'll protect my kids myself." She hung up, the click echoing like a door slamming shut. Her chest ached, but she straightened, resolve hardening like bone. The credit card in her wallet gleamed with possibility. Marcus's card, no limit, a tool she'd rarely touched. Today it would be her scalpel. She drove to Michigan Avenue, the city's pulse thrumming through the car's open window. At Dior, she selected a red dress that hugged her curves like armor. At Louboutin, she chose heels that clicked with authority. At Hermès, she claimed a Birkin bag, its leather smooth under her fingertips. The total, over $200,000, felt like a reclamation, each purchase stitching her confidence back together. In a salon, she let a stylist tame her hair into sleek waves, the mirror reflecting a woman reborn. Driving home, bags piled in the back seat, Evie's eyes caught a familiar cafe across the street. Her breath hitched. Through the window, Marcus sat with Izzy Vance, their heads bent close, her hand brushing his. The diamond necklace glittered at Izzy's throat, a taunt in the sunlight. Evie's pulse roared, but her hands were steady as she parked. She wouldn't run. Not today. She stepped out, the red dress blazing, heels striking the pavement like sparks. Bags in hand, she entered the cafe, the bell above the door chiming like a warning. Marcus looked up, his face paling. Izzy froze, her smile faltering. Evie approached their table, her lips curving into a smile sharp enough to cut. "Well, don't you two look cozy?" she said, her voice velvet over steel. "Almost like you're having an affair." She tilted her head, eyes locking on Izzy. "Tell me, Izzy, do you have a husband? You seem so perfect for Marcus. Such a shame he's already married." Izzy's cheeks flushed, her fingers twitching around her coffee cup. Marcus opened his mouth, but no words came. Evie pressed on, her tone light, lethal. "I've been shopping, Marcus. A little retail therapy to lift my spirits. Next week I'm thinking a Porsche. Red, to match the dress. You don't mind, do you?" She set a Hermes bag on the table, its weight nudging their cups. The cafe seemed to hold its breath, patrons' eyes darting to the scene. Marcus stammered, "Evie, what's gotten into you?" But she was already turning, her heels clicking a triumphant rhythm. Izzy's gaze burned into her back, but Evie didn't falter. She stepped into the sunlight, the bag swinging lightly in her hands. Her heart pounded, a mix of fury and exhilaration. She'd drawn first blood, and it felt like victory. At home, she tucked Ava and Leo into bed, their soft breaths calming the storm within her. Ava clutched a stuffed bunny, murmuring, "You look pretty, Mommy." Evie kissed her forehead, the warmth of her daughter's trust anchoring her. "Thank you, sweetheart," she whispered, brushing a curl from Ava's face. Alone in the kitchen, Evie poured a glass of wine, the ruby liquid catching the light. She opened the laptop, revisiting Izzy's Instagram. The Napa photo stared back, a wound she refused to let fester. She saved the image, then pulled the credit card statement from her pocket, laying it beside the wineglass. Her mind worked like it had in the OR. Assess, plan, act. Marcus thought he could betray her, erase her. He was wrong. She leaned back, sipping the wine, its bite sharp on her tongue. The house was quiet, but her thoughts were loud, mapping a path forward. She'd gather more evidence, build her case, reclaim her life. For Ava, for Leo, for the woman she'd buried under years of sacrifice. The cage was cracking, and Evie was ready to break free. Evelyn Hayes stood at the kitchen counter, the morning sun slicing through the blinds, casting bars of light across her hands. She packed Ava's lunchbox with care, folding a napkin into a heart for her daughter. The memory of yesterday's cafe confrontation lingered, sharp as the scent of coffee still clinging to her skin. Marcus's stunned silence, Izzy's flushed cheeks, they fueled her, a pulse of defiance beating stronger each day. But the weight of the credit card statement in her drawer reminded her, this war was far from won. The front door slammed. Marcus stormed in, his tie askew, eyes blazing. $200,000, Evie? His voice was a low growl, the kind he used to intimidate residents at the hospital. What the hell were you thinking? Evie turned, her gaze steady, a surgeon assessing a wound. She set the lunchbox down, her fingers brushing its cool plastic surface. Just a fraction of what you owe me, she said, her tone even, slicing through his anger. She leaned against the counter, arms crossed, the red dress from yesterday replaced by a crisp blouse, but its fire still burned in her posture. Marcus's jaw tightened, his hands clenching as if grasping for control. You're acting insane, he snapped, but his eyes darted away, unable to hold hers. Evie's lips twitched, not quite a smile. Insane or awake? She didn't raise her voice, didn't need to. The silence that followed was heavy, charged with his unease. She let it linger, savoring the shift in power. He muttered something about work and left, the door's thud a hollow echo. Evie exhaled, her breath shaky but resolute. She wouldn't confront him fully, not yet. Let him stew in his guilt. At Ava's school, the air was crisp, the chatter of parents and children a familiar hum. Evie knelt to adjust Leo's backpack, his small hand warm in hers. Ava skipped ahead, her ponytail bouncing, unaware of the storm brewing in her mother's heart. Evie's eyes scanned the drop-off line, and there she was. Izzy Vance stepping out of a sleek SUV, her daughter Emma trailing behind. Izzy's smile was practiced, her designer coat a calculated statement. Evie's stomach twisted, but her face remained a mask of calm. Izzy had enrolled Emma in Ava's class, a move as deliberate as a chess gambit. Evie watched as Izzy bent to kiss Emma's forehead, her voice loud enough to carry to nearby parents. "You'll love it here, sweetheart. Such a good school." The words were innocent, but her glance toward Evie was a blade, sharp and intentional. Evie straightened, her heels grounding her like anchors. She wouldn't flinch. In the days that followed, the school became a battlefield of whispers. Izzy lingered at pickup, chatting with other mothers, her laughter bright but brittle. Evie overheard fragments. Evelyn's been so distracted lately. Spending like she's lost her mind." The rumors stung, each one a pinprick to her pride, but Evie refused to engage. She focused on Ava, helping her with homework, braiding her hair, answering her endless questions about the stars. "Mommy, do they ever fall?" Ava asked one evening, her eyes wide. "Only if they want to shine somewhere new," Evie replied, kissing her forehead. But her mind was elsewhere, tallying Izzy's moves, planning her own. She wouldn't let this woman, with her diamond necklace and calculated charm, rewrite her story. One afternoon, as Evie waited at the school gate, Ava ran to her, clutching a drawing. "Look, Mommy, it's us!" The paper showed three stick figures, Evie, Ava, Leo, under a bright sun. Evie's heart swelled, but Ava's next words pierced it. "Miss Vance said you don't love me as much as she loves Emma. Is that true?" Her voice was small, her eyes searching. Evie knelt, cupping Ava's face, her thumbs brushing away a stray tear. "Listen to me, sweetheart," she said, her voice fierce but soft. "I love you more than all the stars in the sky, more than anything. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise." Ava nodded, burying her face in Evie's shoulder. Evie held her tight, the warmth of her daughter's trust a shield against the world. That evening, Evie took the kids to an ice cream shop, the kind with sticky tables and neon signs. Ava chose chocolate, Leo vanilla, and Evie watched them giggle, their spoons clinking against bowls. The simple joy of it steadied her, but beneath it, her resolve sharpened. Izzy's games weren't just about her anymore. They were touching her children. That was a line Evie wouldn't let her cross. Back home, she tucked Ava and Leo into bed, reading them a story about a brave knight who slayed dragons. As their eyelids drooped, Evie's mind churned. She opened her laptop, reviewing the evidence she'd gathered. The credit card statement, the Napa email, Izzy's photo. Each piece was a stitch in the case she was building, precise and unyielding. She closed the laptop, her reflection in the dark screen a woman she was beginning to recognize again. Evie stood, crossing to the window. The Chicago skyline glittered, a reminder of the world beyond this battle. She wasn't just fighting Marcus or Izzy. She was fighting for Ava, for Leo, for the woman she'd buried under years of sacrifice. The schoolyard whispers, Izzy's calculated moves, Marcus's cowardice. They were all part of the same war, and Evie was ready to fight. Evelyn Hayes tied a pink ribbon in Ava's hair, her fingers gentle but precise, as if threading a suture. Ava stood before the mirror, clutching a folded drawing, her eyes bright with anticipation. "Daddy's picking me up today, right, Mommy?" she asked, her voice a melody of hope. Evie's heart clenched, but she forced a smile, smoothing Ava's dress. "That's what he promised for him, sweetheart. You'll have fun at the park." She tucked the drawing into Ava's backpack, her fingers lingering on the paper. A gift for Marcus. A child's offering to mend a fracture Evie knew ran too deep. The morning air was sharp as Evie drove to school, Leo humming in the back seat, Ava's chatter filling the car with warmth. Evie's mind, though, was a battlefield, replaying Izzy's whispers and Marcus's evasions. She'd kept her silence, gathering evidence like a surgeon collecting instruments. But Ava's excitement stirred a flicker of doubt. Could Marcus keep this one promise? She pushed the thought away, parking at the school's curb. She kissed Ava's forehead, the scent of her strawberry shampoo a fleeting comfort. "Have a great day, my star," she said, watching Ava skip toward the gate, her backpack bouncing. The day dragged, each hour a wait. Evie cleaned the kitchen, the sponge's rasp against dishes a rhythm to steady her nerves. She checked her phone, no message from Marcus. Her fingers hovered over the screen, tempted to call, but pride held her back. She busied herself with Leo, building a fort from blankets, his giggles a balm to her unease. Yet her eyes kept drifting to the clock, counting down to pickup time. At the school gate, Evie arrived early, her breath visible in the cooling afternoon air. Parents milled around, their chatter a low hum. She scanned the crowd, expecting Marcus's familiar silhouette. Ava stood by the gate, clutching her drawing, her pink dress a beacon in the gray light. Evie's chest tightened as minutes ticked by. No Marcus. A drizzle began, soft at first, then steady, dampening Ava's curls. Evie stepped forward, but Ava waved her back, insistent. "Daddy's coming, Mommy," he promised. Then she saw him. Marcus's car pulled up, sleek and silver, cutting through the rain. Evie's shoulders eased, a flicker of relief. Ava bounced, waving her drawing. But Marcus didn't approach her. He stepped out, umbrella in hand, and walked straight to Emma, Izzy's daughter, who stood nearby. He knelt, shielding Emma with the umbrella, his smile warm as he helped her into his car. Izzy stood beside him, her coat pristine, her hand grazing his arm. Marcus glanced at Ava, offered a distracted wave, then drove off, Emma in the back seat. Ava stood frozen, the drawing slipping from her hands, landing in a puddle. Rain streaked her face, mingling with tears. "Why didn't Daddy want me?" she sobbed, her voice small, breaking. Evie's world tilted. She ran to Ava, dropping to her knees, heedless of the wet pavement soaking her jeans. She pulled Ava close, her daughter's trembling body a wound she couldn't stitch. "Oh, baby," Evie whispered, her voice thick. "You're everything to me." Ava's sobs shook them both, each one a shard in Evie's heart. She lifted Ava, carrying her to the car, Leo trailing behind, confused but quiet. In the rearview mirror, Evie saw her phone, its camera still open from snapping a photo of Leo earlier. Her finger brushed the screen, revealing a video she'd unknowingly recorded. Marcus walking past Ava, his wave dismissive, Emma under his umbrella. The evidence was a blade, cold and sharp, one she'd wield later. For now, she focused on Ava, wiping her tears, humming a lullaby until her daughter's sobs eased. At home, Evie wrapped Ava in a blanket, made hot cocoa, and sat with her on the couch. Leo curled beside them, sensing the shift in their world. "Daddy was just busy, right?" Ava asked, her eyes searching Evie's. Evie's throat burned, but she nodded, forcing a smile. "He loves you, sweetheart, but Mommy's here, always." She held Ava close, the weight of her promise grounding her. That night, after tucking the children into bed, Evie faced Marcus. He entered, his coat damp, his expression guarded. "Where were you?" she asked, her voice low, controlled. He shrugged, loosening his tie. "Got held up. Helped Izzy with Emma. It's no big deal." Evie's hand trembled as she pulled out her phone, pressing play. The video filled the room. Marcus's wave, Ava's crumpled drawing, the rain. His face paled, his mouth opening, but Evie cut him off. "This is the father you choose to be?" Her voice was a scalpel, precise and unyielding. "You made her cry, Marcus. You broke her heart." He stammered, "It was a mistake, Evie. No." She stepped closer, her eyes blazing. "You don't get to explain this away. You'll pay for every tear she shed." She turned away, leaving him in the dim kitchen, his silhouette small against her resolve. Evie climbed the stairs, pausing at Ava's door. Her daughter slept, clutching her bunny, the pink ribbon still in her hair. Evie's fingers brushed the doorframe, her heart a storm of love and fury. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about Ava, Leo, and the family she'd protect at all costs. The line had been drawn, and Marcus had crossed it. She'd make sure he regretted it. Evelyn Hayes sat at the kitchen table, the house silent except for the faint tick of the clock. Moonlight spilled through the window, glinting off the laptop screen where she'd cataloged her evidence. The credit card statement, the Napa email, Izzy's damning Instagram photo, and the video of Marcus abandoning Ava in the rain. Each file was a suture, stitching together a case as precise as any surgery she'd performed. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, steady as they'd once been with a scalpel. Ava's tear-streaked face lingered in her mind, a wound she couldn't close with bandages or time. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about her children, her anchors, her fight. Evie rose, her bare feet cold against the hardwood floor. She poured a glass of water, the liquid trembling in her grip as she replayed Marcus's feeble excuses from last night. A mistake, he'd called it. A mistake that left Ava sobbing under a gray sky. Her jaw clenched, the resolve in her chest hardening like bone. She wouldn't let him break her daughter again. She wouldn't let him break her. By morning, Evie was a woman on a mission. She dressed in a tailored blazer, its sharp lines a shield, and drove to a sleek office in downtown Chicago. Olivia Carter, the city's top divorce lawyer, greeted her with a firm handshake and eyes that missed nothing. Evie laid out her evidence on the polished desk, each piece a brick in the wall she was building. Olivia's pen tapped the table, her gaze sharp. "You've done your homework, Evelyn. This is airtight. He won't stand a chance." Evie's lips curved, not quite a smile. "I want more than a win," she said, her voice low, deliberate. "I want him to feel the weight of what he's done." Olivia nodded, a glint of respect in her eyes. "We'll take the house, the assets, and custody. He'll be left with his reputation in tatters." Evie's heart thudded, a mix of relief and vengeance. She handed over a USB drive, its contents a weapon forged in betrayal. "Everything you need is here," she said, her fingers brushing the cool metal. Back home, Evie's phone buzzed with a new email, a confirmation of Marcus's latest purchase. A dinner for two at a restaurant she'd never been to. Her stomach twisted, but she saved it, another thread in her tapestry of proof. She moved to the living room, where Ava's drawing from yesterday lay on the coffee table, its colors blurred by rain. Evie traced the stick figures, her throat tightening. She'd protect her children no matter the cost. That afternoon, she made a call she'd been dreading, yet craving. Dr. Catherine Lang, her mentor from residency, answered with a warmth that cut through Evie's armor. "Evie, it's been too long," Catherine said, her voice a lifeline. Evie took a breath, steadying herself. "I'm ready to come back, Catherine. To the OR. To who I am." The words felt like shedding a skin, raw but freeing. Catherine's silence was brief, then firm. "You were always my best, Evie. Meet me tomorrow. We'll get you recertified." Evie hung up, her pulse racing as if she were prepping for surgery. She spent the evening poring over medical journals, the pages crisp under her fingers, their terminology a familiar song. She highlighted passages, her pen moving with the precision of a blade. Leo wandered in, clutching a toy car, his eyes wide. "Mommy, are you studying?" he asked, climbing into her lap. Evie kissed his forehead, his warmth grounding her. "Yes, buddy. Mommy's going to be a doctor again." Ava peeked from the doorway, a shy smile breaking through. "Like a superhero?" she asked. Evie's heart swelled. Exactly like that. The next day, Evie stood before the University of Chicago Medical Center, its glass facade reflecting a sky bruised with clouds. Her blazer felt like armor, her heels clicking with purpose. Inside, Catherine waited, her gray hair pulled back, her eyes sharp with pride. "You're not starting over, Evie," she said, handing her a stack of study guides. "You're picking up where you left off." Evie clutched the papers, their weight a promise. She spent hours in the hospital library, her mind alight with anatomy and techniques, the rust of years falling away. At home, she tucked Ava and Leo into bed, reading them a story about a knight who faced dragons. Ava's hand clung to hers, her trust a beacon. "You're brave, Mommy," she whispered. Evie's eyes stung, but she smiled. "So are you, my star." Alone, she opened her laptop, adding Marcus's latest email to her files. Her fingers moved with surgical precision, each click a step toward freedom. Evie stood crossing to the window. The Chicago skyline glittered, a constellation of possibilities. She wasn't just fighting Marcus or Izzy. She was fighting for the woman she'd buried, the doctor who saved lives, the mother who'd shield her children from pain. The evidence was her scalpel, the hospital her battlefield. She'd reclaim her life, stitch by stitch, and no one, not Marcus, not Izzy, would stand in her way. The cage was shattered and Dr. Evelyn Hayes was stepping through. Evelyn Hayes strode through the sterile halls of Northwestern Memorial Hospital, her heels clicking like a metronome against the polished floor. The scent of antiseptic stung her nostrils, a familiar anchor from her years in the operating room. Her tailored coat flared behind her, a banner of purpose. She wasn't here for Marcus or his betrayal. She was here to reclaim her place in a world she'd once ruled. Her heart pounded, not with fear, but with the clarity of a surgeon facing a critical incision. Today, she'd carve out her future. She spotted Izzy Vance near the nurse's station, her white coat pristine, her smile a calculated performance for a passing colleague. Evie's pulse quickened, but her face remained a mask of calm, her eyes sharp as a scalpel. She approached, her presence pulling the air taut. Izzy turned, her smile faltering as Evie stopped before her. "Dr. Vance," Evie said, her voice smooth, deliberate, "I hear you're making waves here, but this world doesn't belong to just one doctor. I'm back and I'll show you what a real surgeon can do." Izzy's lips parted, her eyes flickering with unease. She recovered quickly, tilting her chin. "Evelyn, I didn't expect you here. Feeling nostalgic?" Her tone was light, but her fingers tightened on her clipboard, betraying her. Evie's smile was a blade, thin and sharp. "Not nostalgic. Ready. You'll see me in the OR soon enough." She turned, leaving Izzy frozen, the hum of the hospital swallowing her silence. Evie's chest swelled with a quiet triumph, her steps lighter as she exited the building. She'd drawn blood without raising her voice. Back in her car, Evie gripped the steering wheel, the leather cool under her palms. The confrontation with Izzy was a spark, but Marcus was the fire she needed to extinguish. Her phone buzzed, a text from Olivia Carter, her lawyer. "Meeting set for 3 p.m. Be ready." Evie's lips pressed into a line. She'd spent weeks building her case, each piece of evidence a brick in a fortress. The credit card charges, the Napa emails, the damning video of Marcus abandoning Ava. Today, she'd bring it all to bear. The law office was a sleek expanse of glass and steel, its air heavy with the scent of polished wood. Olivia sat at the head of the conference table, her gray suit as sharp as her reputation. Marcus entered, his posture rigid, his eyes avoiding Evie's. He looked smaller here, stripped of the hospital's halo. Evie sat across from him, her hands folded, the USB drive in her pocket a silent weapon. Olivia slid a folder toward Marcus, her voice crisp. "Dr. Hayes, you have two options. Option 1, a clean divorce. You relinquish the house, most assets, in primary custody of Ava and Leo. You keep some dignity. Option 2, we go public. Every email, every receipt, every second of that video where you left your daughter in the rain, it all comes out. Your career won't survive it." Marcus's face drained of color, his fingers twitching on the table. "You're bluffing," he said, but his voice cracked, a fault line in his bravado. Evie leaned forward, her gaze unwavering. "You underestimated me for years, Marcus. You thought I'd stay quiet, shrink into your shadow. You were wrong." Her words were soft, lethal, each one landing like a precise cut. She pushed her phone across the table. The video paused on Ava's tear-streaked face. "Look at her," Evie said, her voice trembling with controlled fury. "You broke her heart, and I'll break you before I let that happen again." Marcus stared at the screen, his shoulders sagging. "Evie, I didn't mean—" She cut him off, her voice steel. "Don't. You don't get to explain away her pain." Olivia tapped the folder. "Sign or we go to court. Your choice." Marcus's hands shook as he reached for the pen, his eyes darting to Evie, searching for mercy. He found none. He signed, the scratch of the pen a final suture, closing a wound. Evie stood, her coat whispering as she moved. She didn't look back as she left the room, Marcus's silhouette fading behind her. Outside, the Chicago wind bit her cheeks, sharp and cleansing. She climbed into her car, her hands steady on the wheel. The weight of the confrontation lifted, replaced by a clarity she hadn't felt in years. She'd faced Izzy, dismantled Marcus, and emerged unbroken. Her heart raced, not with fear but with possibility. At home, she found Ava and Leo in the living room, building a pillow fort. Ava's laughter rang out, a sound that stitched Evie's soul back together. She joined them, crawling into the fort, Leo's small hand tugging her sleeve. "Mommy, you're the queen of the castle," he declared, his grin wide. Evie kissed his forehead, her eyes meeting Ava's. "And you're my stars," she said, her voice thick with love. Alone later, Evie stood at her window, the city skyline a tapestry of light. The USB drive sat on her desk, its contents no longer needed, but a reminder of her strength. She'd faced her enemies, not with screams but with precision, reclaiming her life piece by piece. The battle wasn't over. Ava and Leo needed her, and the operating room awaited, but for the first time Evie felt ready. Dr. Evelyn Hayes was back, and no one would cage her again. Evelyn Hayes stood in the doorway of her new apartment, the scent of fresh paint mingling with the faint vanilla of Ava's candle flickering on the counter. Boxes lined the walls, their contents a mosaic of a life being rebuilt. The Chicago skyline gleamed through the window, closer now than in Kenilworth's gilded cage. Evie's fingers brushed the keys to the sold mansion, a weight lifted with each signature at the closing. The divorce was final. Marcus stripped of the house, most assets in primary custody. His name was a whisper now, tarnished in the hospital corridors. Evie felt no triumph, only a quiet freedom, like the first deep breath after a long surgery. She unpacked a photo of Ava and Leo, their smiles frozen in a park picnic last summer. Her heart ached, not for what was lost, but for what she'd protect. The apartment, smaller but hers, hummed with possibility. She hung Ava's drawings on the fridge, their bright colors a defiance against the gray of recent months. Leo's toy cars littered the floor, a joyful chaos. Evie knelt, arranging them in a neat row, her hands steady as they'd once been in the OR. Ava bounded in, her ponytail swinging. "Mommy, can we have a movie night?" Her eyes, no longer shadowed by tears, sparked with hope. Evie nodded, pulling her close, the warmth of her daughter's embrace a suture for her soul. "Pizza and superheroes?" Evie asked, her voice soft. Leo toddled over, clapping. "Hulk smash!" he shouted, and Evie laughed, the sound lighter than it had been in years. She ordered pizza, the phone warm in her hand, and set up blankets on the couch. The kids curled against her, their giggles filling the room as the movie played, a shield against the world's sharpness. But the world waited. At the University of Chicago Medical Center, Evie faced a new battlefield. Her white coat felt like a second skin, but younger doctors eyed her with skepticism, their whispers trailing her like smoke. "Out of practice," one muttered during rounds, his voice low but cutting. Evie's jaw tightened, but she kept her focus on patient charts, her pen moving with surgical precision. She'd studied late into the nights, her desk a fortress of textbooks and coffee mugs, relearning techniques that had evolved in her absence. The rust was there, but so was her fire. Her chance came on a stormy afternoon. A trauma case rolled in, a car accident victim with a fractured skull and internal bleeding. The attending hesitated, the room tense with beeping monitors. Evie stepped forward, her voice calm but commanding. "I'll take it." Eyes turned, some doubtful, others curious. She didn't falter. In the OR, the scalpel was an extension of her hand, its weight familiar, grounding. She navigated the patient's brain with the precision of a cartographer, her movements swift, unerring. Hours later, the monitors stabilized, the patient's pulse steady. A young resident, wide-eyed, whispered, "That was incredible." Evie nodded, wiping sweat from her brow, her heart pounding with a thrill she'd almost forgotten. The victory lingered, but challenges remained. At home, Ava struggled with nightmares, waking once with a cry that pierced Evie's sleep. "I dreamed Daddy didn't want me," Ava sobbed, her small body trembling. Evie held her, rocking gently, the moonlight casting shadows on their faces. "He loves you, baby," she said, though the words tasted bitter. "But I'm here, and I'll never leave." She sang a lullaby, her voice a thread weaving safety around her daughter. Leo, sensing the shift, crawled into bed with them, his warmth a quiet comfort. Marcus requested a visit, his email formal, stilted. Evie agreed, but only under supervision, her lawyer's number on speed dial. At a park, she watched from a bench as Marcus knelt before Ava and Leo, his smile strained. Ava clung to Evie's hand, hesitant, while Leo offered a toy car, oblivious to the tension. Evie's heart twisted, but she stood firm, her presence a shield. Marcus left after an hour, his shoulders slumped, a man diminished by his choices. Evie poured her energy into her children and her work. She enrolled Ava in art classes, her daughter's sketches blooming with confidence. Leo's bedtime stories became adventures they invented together, his laughter a melody. At the hospital, Evie's reputation grew, her name whispered with respect, not doubt. She stood taller, her white coat a banner of her return. Late one night, she opened a bottle of wine, the glass cool in her hand. The apartment was quiet, the kids asleep, their dreams safe for now. She stepped onto the balcony, the city's pulse a distant hum. The skyline glittered, a testament to what she'd reclaimed. The divorce, the hospital, the whispers. They were battles won, but the war was for Ava and Leo's hearts, for her own soul. Evie sipped the wine, its warmth spreading through her. She wasn't whole yet, but she was building, brick by brick, a life stronger than the one she'd lost. Evelyn Hayes stood in the hospital scrub room, her hands still warm from the gloves she'd worn through a 7-hour surgery. The patient, a young woman with a ruptured aneurysm, was stable now, her pulse steady on the monitor's green line. Evie's fingers trembled slightly as she untied her mask, the faint hum of the OR lingering in her ears. She caught her reflection in the glass door, eyes bright, jaw set, a woman who'd fought her way back to this moment. A year ago, she'd been a shadow in a kitchen, her dreams buried under dishes and betrayal. Now she was Dr. Evelyn Hayes again, and the operating room was her kingdom. She stepped into the hallway, the fluorescent lights casting sharp shadows. Colleagues nodded as she passed, their respect no longer whispered but spoken. "Brilliant work, Dr. Hayes," a resident said, her voice tinged with awe. Evie smiled, the weight of her white coat a badge of her reclamation. She'd faced skepticism, late nights of study, and the relentless grind of proving herself. Each surgery was a stitch, mending the years she'd lost to Marcus's shadow. At home, the apartment was a haven of warmth. Ava's artwork covered the walls, bursts of color against the cream paint. Leo's toy cars lined the windowsill, catching the evening sun. Evie kicked off her shoes, the hardwood cool under her feet, and found her children in the kitchen, flour-dusted and giggling. Ava stood on a stool, stirring cookie dough, while Leo smeared chocolate on his cheeks. "Mommy, we're chefs," Ava declared, her ponytail bouncing. Evie laughed, the sound rich and unburdened, and joined them, her fingers sinking into the sticky dough. The scent of vanilla and sugar wrapped around them, a cocoon of joy. Ava's smile was brighter now, the shadows of her father's betrayal fading. She'd started a journal, pages filled with stories of stars and superheroes, her confidence blooming in art classes. "Mommy, I wrote about you," she said, handing Evie a drawing of a woman in a white coat, a cape flowing behind her. "You're my hero." Evie's throat tightened, her eyes stinging as she hugged Ava close, Leo piling into the embrace. "You're mine too," she whispered, her voice thick with love. Leo, now 5, saw her as a giant, his bedtime stories filled with tales of Dr. Mommy saving the day. He'd draw her with a stethoscope, his crayons bold and unapologetic. Their bond was a fortress, built through movie nights, pizza dinners, and quiet moments when Evie held them through nightmares. She'd rearranged her schedule to never miss a school play or parent-teacher meeting, her calendar a testament to her priorities. The balance wasn't perfect. Some nights exhaustion pulled at her, but it was hers, hard-won and fierce. Marcus was a ghost now, his visits rare and supervised. Evie had sent Eleanor a birthday card, a small gesture to close that chapter without bitterness. She let go of the anger, not for them, but for herself, to free her heart for Ava and Leo. The scars of her marriage remained, etched in memories of rain-soaked drawings and broken promises, but they no longer bled. They were marks of survival, proof of her strength. At the hospital, Evie's reputation soared. She was invited to speak at a national conference, her name on the program a beacon for young doctors, especially women. During a quiet moment in the lounge, she sipped coffee, its bitterness grounding her, and reflected on the journey. The whispers of doubt were gone, replaced by colleagues seeking her advice, their trust a currency she'd earned. She mentored a young resident, seeing her own fire in the woman's eyes, and felt a spark of purpose beyond the OR. One evening, after a grueling but successful surgery, Evie stood in the hospital's break room, the city skyline glittering beyond the window. She checked her phone, smiling at a text from Ava. "Pizza tonight, Mommy," she typed back. "You got it, my star." The words were a lifeline, tethering her to the life she'd built. She caught her reflection in the glass, a woman with lines of fatigue but eyes alight with purpose. The scars of her past were there, invisible but felt, no longer a weight but a badge. She stepped out into the Chicago dusk, the air crisp, the horizon painted in hues of gold and violet. Her phone buzzed again, a photo from Ava, her and Leo grinning with cookie crumbs on their faces. Evie laughed, the sound carrying into the evening. She walked to her car, her white coat folded over her arm, its weight a reminder of who she was. Dr. Evelyn Hayes, mother, surgeon, survivor. The city pulsed around her, a symphony of possibility. She'd faced betrayal, rebuilt her life, and emerged stronger. Her children's love her anchor, her skill her sword. Evie slid into the driver's seat, the engine humming to life. The road ahead stretched open, like an artery waiting to be mended. She drove toward home, toward Ava and Leo, toward a future she'd carved with her own hands. The scars remained, but they were hers, a map of her strength. She was ready for whatever came next. Evelyn Hayes stood on her balcony, Chicago's skyline a constellation of resilience. The night air kissed her skin, cool and alive, as Ava's laughter echoed from within, a melody of healing. Evie's fingers traced the rim of her wine glass, its weight a reminder of battles won. She'd shattered the cage of betrayal, rebuilt her life with scalpel-sharp precision, and forged a future for her children. Her scars, once wounds, now gleamed like stars, proof of her strength. Dr. Evelyn Hayes, mother, surgeon, survivor, smiled into the darkness. The world was hers again, and she was ready to soar,